What's going on, guys? Joe Cruz here, and today we have another PC build. Today's build will cost about $950, but stay tuned because I will talk about some alternatives that can save you up to $200 in this build. Let's get into it. Alright guys, so what we have here in this build is a Ryzen 3600. It has 6 cores, 12 threads, and it's clocked at 4.2 gigahertz. Now, this CPU is actually a really good CPU. Not only you can use this for gaming and streaming, it can also handle productivity workload very well. Now, I paired this CPU with an MSI B450M pro-vdh motherboard. Now, this motherboard doesn't have all the bells and whistles. However, it has all the things that I really care about, such as enough USB ports, an M.2 slot, and a good enough VRM for minor overclocking. Now, I definitely don't recommend spending more money on a motherboard, especially around this budget. Up next is our memory. We have 16 gigabytes of G.Skill Trident Z RGB clocked at 3200 megahertz. Now, I really like how this memory looks. In my opinion, is one of the best looking ones in the market. Now, let's move on to our GPU. For our GPU, we have EVGA's RTX2060 SC Ultra Gaming. It has 6 gigs of VRAM with a boost clock of 1755 MHz. I just wish that manufacturers put backplates on all their cards. It just doesn't make sense that the KO cards has a backplate, although this card has a higher boost clock and it's more expensive. Anyway, let's move on and talk about our storage. For our boot drive, we have 500 gigabytes of Western Digital's SN550 NVMe SSD. It has a read speed of up to 2400 megabytes per sec and a write speed of up to 1950 megabytes per sec. Also, we are pairing this with the Western Digital Blue 1TB hard disk drive where we can install our games. Up next is our power supply. We have Gigabyte's PB500, 500 watts 80 plus certified power supply. The only reason why I got this power supply was because it was the only known brand name that I trust and was available and not overpriced at the time of purchase. Now, I know a lot of you are thinking that 500 watts isn't enough for this rig, but we're gonna talk about that in a bit. I'm gonna show you guys how much power this rig actually uses up under synthetic loads. Let's move on to our case. We have Corsair's 280X Mini ATX case in black. Now, I really like this case. However, it's actually pretty expensive, especially if you buy it with the Corsair's LL RGB fans with it. Now, I got the case with no RGB fans included and just purchased a set of up here RGB fans, which reduced the cost by a little bit. And our total came up to be $926.93. Now, a lot of the pricier things in here that I used are just for aesthetics. And here are some alternatives if you guys are just after the best performance for the least amount of money. We can replace the motherboard to a Gigabyte B450M DS3H, which is a little cheaper but should still perform the same. We can also replace our memory to a Corsair's Vengeance LPX. We will lose our RGB but save a good $30 right there. Another thing that we can replace is our boot drive. Instead of an NVMe SSD, we can put in a SATA SSD. I recommend using at least 240 gigs, so a good alternative would be something like an ADATA SU635. And last, we can replace the case with something like a Cooler Master Masterbox Q300L. This will be a good alternative for a mini ATX case. With all that replacement, our total went from $926.93 to $749.92. That's almost $180 in savings. As always, all the links for the parts that I use in this build will be in the description box down below. Let me show you guys some benchmarks.
See ya. Smoke's down. Out of here.
Last player stand.
Alright, so what do you guys think of those benchmarks? So let me show you guys how much power this rig actually uses. Now, this is while running Prime 95 and Firmark, so both CPU and GPU are actually maxed out. And with that being said, we are only consuming 300 watts. So 500 watts is definitely enough to run this PC. Anyway, before we end this video, let's read some of your comments from my last video. This one is from Adrian Delin. Why is the gameplay a bit laggy? It's not like that in real life, right? So the way I do benchmark is I use an external recorder. So that's the actual FPS that you are going to get. However, it may not look right. It's because I rendered these videos in 24p. So it would not look as smooth as if you were playing the game. And that's it for this video, guys. If you guys enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. It really does help out with the channel get discovered by other people. Also, get subscribed and hit that notification bell button because I have a lot more videos coming out. And that's it. Until next time, peace.